Yo, 2012 Ford Escape. This thing's got a little loose ball joint action. Both lower ball joints are like that. Here's a little better view of the thing. The front brakes are down to almost nothing. Just about grinding. I'm thinking her outer tie rods are loose too. I can feel a little bit of movement. I can hear a little bit. It's hard to tell though because them lower ball joints are so loose, so I'm probably going to have to do outer tie rods on both sides too, because the other side's like that. She's got an ABS code for the left front sensor too, and it's broke. It's loose. It probably hit something. So for right now, I'm going to do two lower ball joints, an ABS sensor, and new front pads and rotors. The rear drums, they look okay. And I'm going to do the outer tie rods last. I'm going to put these in first and make sure that they're loose, because I can't really tell because these are so bad. It's hard to tell. So I'm going to put these in. I'm going to put the tire on it, shake it down again, and see if the front end's tight. And if it's not, I'll be replacing stuff after. She also has a problem with her steering. It's sticky. I can feel it stick, and then it binds up, and then it turns. And it binds up, and it turns. Typical Ford junk. Feels really goofy. Crown Victorias have the same problem when they get old. It's probably because of this U-joint for the steering shaft. I'm going to hose it down with some penetrant lubricant. The more the merrier. I'm just going to work the steering wheel back and forth. See if it frees up, maybe hit it again, let it sit. Well, after working the steering wheel back and forth a bunch, it did free up quite a bit, so I was right about that. Them U-joints are pretty cheap. It looks like the brake fluid's never been replaced in this thing. It's pretty old and cruddy and dirty. So I'm going to be changing that out. I'm going to suck as much as I can out of the reservoir. You just got a brake bleeder. That's about as much as I'm going to get out of there. I got a 32 fluid ounce bottle of brake fluid I'm just going to leave upside down in here. It'll fill it up and it won't leak out. I removed the cap, loosened the bleeder screw up. That's a 9mm. I just put a hose on the rears. I'm just going to let both sides gravity bleed until I get nice clean clear fluid out of them while I do the fronts. For whatever reason, the front bleeder's a 3/8. Crack this open and hope it don't break. Oh. Only reason why I did that is so I can pull this piston in, and the brake fluid's not going to go back up into the reservoir. I'm just going to pull this nice and easy. Let it drip a little bit. Close this back up. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Now these little rubber boots are supposed to be plastic caps on the end of these, and they're gone. Probably because all the Ford power just blew them right off and it just couldn't handle it anymore. There's 7mm Allens in here. I'm going to take these all the way out because I'm going to have to re-lubricate them anyways. I forgot about the funky metal tab thing. I can just push up and pull out at the same time, and it just pops right off. I could support this with something, but it looks like it can hang there and be fairly safe without wrecking a line. Ooh, isn't that fancy? How could she not hear that? What the heck? I had to beat this rotor off with a hammer. Now I found out why. Somebody put a new nut on here, probably put a wheel bearing in it. Hammered the living crap out of this thing. No wonder why the wheel was so stuck. I wonder if that's why the wheel speed sensors broke. Yeah. Got a high quality technician doing work on this. Looks like he does a lot higher quality work than I do. Holy crap. Caliper support brackets look like 18 millimeter. I got all that off so I can get at this ball joint nice and easy. Holy crap. What a number. What did they do? And who is they? I don't want to know. I don't want this shaft coming apart, so I'm going to loosen this nut up. It's 1.25 inches, whatever that is in metric. Yeah, I want this to float like that. Might as well get this wheel speed sensor off. 8 millimeter on here. Hopefully it don't break. Yay! That looks extra special and fancy. 10 millimeter here. 8 millimeter here. There's a little rubber plug in the fender. I should be able to pop this out and voila! There's the connector. I just have one little plastic clippy thing here I gotta pull out. And all this comes out. I'm gonna put this in here a little haphazardly just to make sure I got it strung around everything right. Plug this back in. Stick this back up in the hole. I'm going to need to make sure that the air gap is as close to correct as it can possibly be, and this is all rusty. I'm going to chip this off, and I can see there's at least 30 thousandths of an inch of rust on there. If you do this, you might want to wear some safety glasses too, or it's going to go flying in your eyeball. Little file action. That looks good. Inside of this hole is going to be all rusted too. I suppose I'm going to do some minor surgery on the Ford junk with a die grinder. There, it fits. Now that I have all my P's and Q's in order in there, I think I'm going to hang this with a bungee cord a little bit. Just so it's not going to weight down the bend on this hose, because I'm going to take this clip off of here. I'm going to pull this through and just get it out of the way. That way I'll get more movement out of my steering knuckle. This looks to be a 15 millimeter nut, and there's a 13 millimeter bolt on the other side with this pinch bolt. The fluid in the rear is already nice and clean, so I can close all that off. Now these are pinch bolts. I'm going to put a little penetrant on here because I can. Sometimes you can get in here and you can pry this pinch apart. You can pound on it and just spread it open just a hair to loosen all that up. You don't really want to bend it a whole lot. I don't think I'm going to need to do that though, because I have an air hammer, and a lot of times I can just pound these out. It got pretty far and then it got stuck, and that's because of the angle of the ball joint. I got a fancy tool I can pry this out with. It's a neat little hooky thing. I can just stick this on here and stick a pry bar in the hole and pull down, and that makes my life a little easier. I'm gonna pound this axle in. There, I got all kinds of junk out of my way. Have a ball joint press here. Gonna try to drive this thing out without hammering on it. This is fun too. Sometimes when you try to drive these out this way, this ball will go right through the bottom of the ball joint and fall through. 21 millimeter. Yeah, if you don't have a ball joint press, you can always rent one. I put a little support on the control arm. That way I can hit this with a hammer and it should pop. Give it a little more. Wow. Try a bigger hammer. It's going. There's really nothing square about this thing. It's about as square as Ford, which is pretty darn square. I'm just going to stick it in like this and hope that sucker squares up in there. I measured this ball joint versus the original too, and it's about 0.010 of an inch thicker. So it should have a pretty nice press fit. I'm just going to start by kind of tweaking it by hand. It's going in this way. It's looking pretty square. I might be getting lucky. Just going to go a little at a time and make sure it doesn't go in crooked. Looking really nice. I'm just going to double check this. Just want to make sure that this ball joint isn't hitting the top. It's not. Now once you think you got it all the way in, you want to hit this with a hammer a few times just to make sure that it's seated all the way up against the control arm. Yep, that's all the way. It won't go in anymore. They give me a little just in case ring. Just in case. The just in case ring is in. Got a little grease circ here on a 10 millimeter. I can put Humpty Dumpty back together again. The torque on this pinch bolt is supposed to be 52 foot-pounds. The torque on this axle nut's supposed to be 221 foot-pounds, which is so ridiculously tight, I don't even believe it. Just making sure there's no high spots on the hubs. They feel pretty good. Got a nice clean rotor here I just cleaned. I wiped all the fuzz off it from the rags. There's a whole bunch of rust on all these contact surfaces on the support bracket for the pads. I'm gonna deburr these with this funky deburring tool. And I'm just gonna hit them with a file really quick. I don't know why people still make support brackets like this, probably because they're cheap, but there's always big indentations where the brake pads were. These are supposed to get torqued to 129 foot-pounds. Might as well put all this wiring stuff back on. If you need torque specs for these two bolts, you probably should go back to your day job. Never use an impact on this bolt. Because I just did. I'm just going to make sure there's no high spots on the contact surfaces. Put some brake caliper lube on the contact surfaces. One pad goes on like this. I don't put any lube on here either because the stuff wears out in about 20 seconds with the weather on it. You just want to make sure they slide, you know, make sure they don't stick. This one snaps in here. There it is. Make sure it slides really nice and all the brake pads move around like buttered magic. These clips usually always come with brake pads. Once in a while they don't sit in there right, and if they don't be afraid to use the original. You just stick it in the hole like that and pull on it and put this one on this side and just push that in and it's in there. Now I suppose the only thing I need to do now is just crack this bleeder open and let it drip until there's nice clean clear fluid coming out of it. And after there is, I'll close it off and just do the same to the other side. Oh, and by the way, you want to tighten these bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Now that I have both sides put back together and I ground this hub down, it kind of looks like hell, but it's the right diameter now. Now I got to do the same thing to the rim, because somebody just rammed this thing home and screwed up the rim. And then after I do that, then I'm going to shake it down again and check them outer tie rods. I'm pretty sure they're loose. Do you see a little difference? There's a little difference between the two. This other rim from the rear, yeah, it goes on real nice. Now that this ball joint isn't flopping around, yeah, I can wiggle it back and forth a little bit and put my hand on that outer tie rod. And it is moving a little bit. Both sides are like that. So I'm going to have to do outer tie rods too. I might as well go to the parts store and try to get a couple of them dust boots like this. That's what's on the other side. I'm pretty sure Chief Butch and Hack that did the pads and whatever this was probably just didn't put them back on. I'm going to get a chalk pencil and just put a line on here. Just because it makes my life easy. 21 millimeter on here. 18 millimeter nut on here. Thankfully it came off without spinning the ball joint. I could use a ball joint separator on this, but I can just give it a couple of whacks and this should pop right off. Just like that. The reason why I marked this is because I want to do a thread count. I want to put the new tie rod on with the same threads that I took this one off on. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll get it close. So 26 turns. I don't need to do this, but I'm going to do the alignment guy a favor, because alignment's going to get done on it, and this nut's all jammed in there and rusted in, so I'm going to loosen this up for the guy. That should be good enough. I got a new Moog tie rod. I'll screw this in 26 turns. I suppose one last thing I'm going to do to this truck. This big muffler resonator looking thing, it's got a broken hanger. And there's a crack right here. And there's a crack on the top going all the way around. I should actually replace this along with the rest of the car, but that's not going to happen. So I'm going to run a weld up around here and weld this hanger back on, and this hanger right here is rusted off. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can do a little work to this. It's ready to break all the way around. And there it is. 110 flux core pro monkey shit. This is my neighbor, and she's a big pain in the butt. She barks all the time. Yeah. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Never gives me the ball. Just a narcissistic little brat. Okay, bye.